Hey guys, welcome to Earthit. So today I'm going to share with you one of the most easiest methods of making terrariums. Terrariums are nothing but arranging your plantlets in a glass container that's quite transparent enough, right? And there are two types, and one is open, one is closed. So there are different species of plants that can be kept inside your terrariums. For example, dwarf plants, moss, succulents, air plants, and the list goes on. And for the closed terrarium, you're kind of creating a tiny ecosystem for the plants to self-sustain. So remember not to place them directly in the sunlight. That's it. Without any ado, let's begin with the terrarium process. So first we need moss if it's going to be a closed terrarium. The moss is a very good element and it's of your choice. And then we have coco peat instead of garden soil. So I'm using coco peat since it's a tiny terrarium. Next is a spray bottle to mist in, and I'm having rainwater in it. This is a pair of tweezers. This works really well for tiny containers. Next we have a chunk of activated carbon, and this is from a water purifier. And then we have the container in which we are going to place in our terrarium plants. And finally we have a collection of pebbles or stones of our choice. So let me tell you the sequence in which they have to be arranged. So the bottommost layer is going to be pebbles, and this is the drainage layer and a very important layer for any terrarium of that matter. Since the terrarium containers or glass containers do not have a hole in it, this layer is extremely important because it kinds of create air pockets for the plant roots to just breathe in, not allowing them to sit in the water for quite a long time because the water gets sedimented at the bottom, and these air pockets are very comfortable and they do not suffocate the plants. This is also an aesthetic material or aesthetic element because this depends on the concept, varied colors, shapes, and sizes, and hence give a good contrasting or a good ambience to your terrarium itself. Next is the activated charcoal or activated carbon, and it's also a very important material for air purifying and water purifying methodologies in your terrarium because it's going to be a closed environment and you don't want your plants to breathe in some air which is not so good and not so refined for it. We gotta clean them and we gotta be very pure in that form. So what this carbon or charcoal does, it removes all the toxins just without stripping off any important minerals that's required for the plants to sustain. Next we have is the soil. So again it depends on your open terrarium and closed terrarium. So for open terrarium, something like a succulent, probably kalanchoe, jade, echeveria, heverthia, you can just use a good amount of succulent soil for it to sustain. And if it's gonna be a closed terrarium, you can use English ivy, nerve plant, a mini spider plant. These plants are something that just sustains in a closed terrarium as well. And moss, not to forget them, they are very important elements for a terrarium. Moss is something that's beautiful and just fills up the terrarium with beauty. You can also use air plants for your open terrariums, and just with sand and create a beachy concept or a tropical concept, you can use moss. It just depends on the concept that you want to create your interiors in. And say for an example, if it's going to be an 8-inch terrarium, you can probably have 1 inch of drainage layer, that is a pebble layer, 3/4 inch of activated carbon, and 1 to 1.5 inches of soil. That's minimal requirements for a terrarium. Hey guys, hope the video was useful. So now I'm going to share with you the terrariums that I have, starting off with her. She is mother of 1,000. 3.5 months old right now, following the similar sequence of drain patterns, having pebbles, activated carbon, coco peat, and a plant, and she's growing really well for a 3.5 months old plant with very strong roots. She's also started to develop area roots, so that's a good sign of good growth and a healthy growth as well. Next over here on our list is a closed terrarium, and she is also 3.5 months old. And over here I have a layer of white sand instead of pebbles. White sand, activated carbon, coco peat, and then we have moss. So watering her once a month is more than enough. And if not, if you're going to spray them, make sure you just clear the walls of the terrarium. If yes, good to go. If you're going to feed her with a dripper, or if you're going to feed her with spoon, that's more than enough. Make sure you do not overwater it. If you have overwatered it, just open it for a few times, a few hours, and then you can just close it up so that they don't lose the moisture or effect of a confined environment. Next over here is an open terrarium. It's a succulent is river sand, succulent river sand, and a layer of pebbles, and this also works pretty well. All you gotta do is water her once in 2 weeks. That's more than enough, but water her really well because it's an open terrarium. It kinds of evaporates. Make sure you don't overwater it because there is no drainage layer, because there is no pebbles at the bottom. Sand, river sand, yes, they tend to evaporate faster. So you can use this method as well. And the other one and the last one I have is this. She's a closed terrarium, just a layer of a carpet of moss, and she's kind of really healthy. And over here I have seashells as a bottom layer instead of rocks and pebbles. So I have two. I have mixed up seashells and at the same time I have had rocks also. Sequence of having activated carbon, cocoa peat and moss. Watering once a month is more than enough. If you see dewdrops developing in the walls of the terrarium, a little amount is okay, but if you find like too much, you just gotta open it and let it evaporate. All you can do is open it, clean the walls or wipe it off with a tissue paper or a cotton swab, and that's more than enough. Open it for 5 to 10 minutes and see the actual see the action of the plants or see how the plants are reacting, and then you can close them off. That's more than enough. Again, if you're gonna go for a larger terrarium, you can also add a layer of plastic sheets which has holes poked in it between a layer of activated carbon and pebbles. So this again helps in filtration process. But if you don't want to, and it also helps in aesthetic looks as well. So you don't want the pebbles and activated carbon to just mix up, you can also avoid that step if you want to. But I have seen a lot of terrarium artists using that step as well. Since mine are mini terrariums, I just tried in one and the other ones are good to go. So thank you so much for watching my video and hope to see you guys soon. Namaste.